Hello folks and friends, welcome back to another video. I hope you're doing really well. I'm coming to you from a very messy apartment that is in the middle of being turned upside down because I'm doing some reorganization and decluttering in prep for redoing my apartment, which I'm very excited about. But this video is going to be a response to a question that I've gotten quite a few times in recent months in YouTube comments and Instagram DMs. And that question is, do you still use positive reinforcement? If you've followed my channel for a while, you've probably noticed that I haven't posted a positive reinforcement themed video in a while. The last time was probably back in the spring when I was still doing some work with Safi. And if you're wondering about Safi, because I posted a video, she was in maybe 3 or 4 videos and then I just wasn't posting about her again. She's still at the farm, she's fine, she's all good. I'm just not working with her anymore because she's in a different paddock that's not as accessible. But that was probably the last time that I posted a positive reinforcement themed video. And I don't mention it as much in videos anymore. Yeah, I thought that I would make I don't want to say it's going to be a video essay style video, but it is a more kind of sit down discussion video. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about how my horsemanship has evolved over the last 6 to 8 months, then stay tuned because this is going to be a very chatty, but I hope a very valuable and informative video. So when I started using positive reinforcement all the way back in February of 2021, I followed a similar journey to a lot of people, all or nothing. I'm not going to talk too much about why I started because I have a video all about it. It was the second video that I ever posted on this channel. Basically, Merlin was having a biting issue and I was looking for some non-aversive ways to deal with it. Started using positive reinforcement. It worked great. That video still to this day gets views, and I'm pretty sure it's the reason for half of the subscribers that I have on this channel. So I'm very grateful to it, and I still am really proud of the work that I did with Merlin at that time. And I'm so grateful to it because it really helped jumpstart me into discovering more about learning theory, equine behavior, how my energy affects the horse, and things like that. And it also helped me to reframe how I view my relationship to and with horses. With behavioral issues, it really encouraged me to look for the why rather than pushing through something that didn't feel right. In addition to helping with some biting issues when Merlin was still a stallion, it really helped my journey with him when I was doing under saddle prep. I'm gonna link a video in the cards that I made in the weeks leading up to starting him under saddle. You'll notice that I use positive reinforcement a lot when I'm leaving over his back, teaching him to line up at the mounting block, and it was also incredibly valuable and still is incredibly valuable in teaching him to go bridleless and tackless. Literally 3 months after I started him under saddle. I used it with Eve too to overcome her catching issues and to build up a sense of trust between us. And I basically incorporated into the work that I do with every single horse as long as the owner is okay with it. And when I started, I viewed it as my primary method of training for everything except riding. I basically wanted to shift as far as I could from what I used to be. And I found a lot of comfort in the online positive reinforcement community and connected with a lot of really like-minded individuals here on YouTube, but in the beginning on Instagram, who also wanted to see change in the horse world, both in how we view horses, but also how we treat them in and out of competition, and also just general equine welfare. But since then, I've grown and I've learned a lot. So I still use positive reinforcement, but rather than it being my main method, which it's not a method at all, it's operant conditioning, it's a tool in my tool belt. Something that I've come to realize is that horse training isn't a one-size-fits-all, and it's perfectly fine and acceptable to use certain things for certain horses, to cherry pick what works for you and to disregard what doesn't. As long as there is a caveat, as long as the methods that you choose and the things that you do are gentle, compassionate, and have the horse's welfare in mind. So I use more traditional methods for under saddle, pressure and release, negative reinforcement, whatever, but I also listen to what the horse tells me and I do my best to set them up for success in any given situation. I investigate when something seems wrong or out of character, and I really do my best to listen to the horse when they're trying to tell me something. Often that, trying to tell me something comes in the form of behavioral change or problem horse issue issues or behavioral issues. So in recent months, there's been a couple of examples with Merlin where that has happened, where he started grabbing on to the bit and pulling down. And that was him basically telling me that his teeth were sore and that he was going through some changes in his teeth. So we switched to a bitless, and we're still using a bitless right now. I've mentioned in a few recent videos that he was having some saddle fit issues where he was stopping and stalling and refusing to go forward and turning his head back and like biting at the saddle. And that was him telling me that he was having saddle fit issues. And Kaitlyn from, 10 years ago probably would have just pushed him through that because he was being bad and being disrespectful. I've learned now that all behavior is for a reason, and the horse is always trying to tell you something. But basically, this shift in my mentality and the way that I interact with horses might not have happened without my initial investigations into positive reinforcement. The reality is that people grow and change, and I no longer use positive reinforcement as much as I used to, and I'm very aware that I'm talking with my hands a lot. So I'm sorry for that. And there's a few reasons for that. One of the main ones is that I don't have as much time to do the kind of liberty training as I used to. I'm hoping to get back into it a bit over the winter, but the reality is that I'm working multiple jobs. I do chores at the farm on the weekend. I make YouTube videos and content for social media. I have 2 horses in full work, and somewhere in there I have to have a life outside of all of that. And some people will say it's all about your priorities, you're prioritizing riding too much, blah, 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 blah. But I make sure that the horses that I'm working with have a balanced life and that they're happy in what they do. They all live a species appropriate lifestyle, and they seem to enjoy the ridden work that we do. Another reason why I'm not doing it as much is a very good reason to have, is that I've typically always used it for problem solving or introducing new things that might be scary and things like that. And to be honest, I've been lucky enough not to have any major problems crop up with Merlin or Eve in the last 6 to 8 months. They've been going really well. Our relationship and sense of trust in each other is really strong. So I just haven't needed to use it in the way that I normally do. And as for each individual horse, Eve is not my horse. So as much as we both enjoy doing it, and she was really picking up well on the basics of positive reinforcement groundwork, she's a sales horse, and the work that I do with her has to be focused on developing her as a riding horse. So I still use it, but a lot of the work that I do with her is focused on turning her into a lovely horse for someone to buy one day. And in terms of Merlin, this is going to potentially ruffle some feathers, but it was causing him anxiety. No matter how much I scaled it back to basics, he was getting really overwhelmed and stressed about getting the food reward. I think part of it might be his age. I don't know, because it was never an issue before, and it just kind of started happening. We were still doing it as much as we had previously done, but he was seeming stressed when we were doing the liberty stuff. And I literally, because he was at a point where he was doing some quite advanced behaviors like side passing and things like that. He lives a very species appropriate lifestyle. He has unlimited access to hay, no ulcers, lives outside 24/7. I ruled out everything that could potentially cause it. He just seemed to stop enjoying it, no matter, I literally scaled it back to manners and the rules of the game. And he was just not seeming happy. And some people would likely say that I'm just not doing it right, and that might be the case. And I'm fully willing to accept that as a fact, but I'm just not willing to spend time doing something that he clearly isn't enjoying anymore. I've gotten quite good at reading his behavior. I have done a lot of reading and research into equine behavior in the last year or two. I've read Language, Signs, and Calming Signals by Raquel Dreisma back to front twice. So I like to think I'm knowledgeable enough to read his behavior, and he doesn't exhibit those symptoms when we're just hanging out and I'm focusing on being present with him. And I still use it for certain things because it's not in the functional use of positive reinforcement that he gets anxious. So in the summer, I still use it for hosing him at liberty, but in terms of the actual liberty sessions that we were doing in positive reinforcement training sessions, I'm just not doing it at the moment. I'm not saying I'm never going to go back to it, but I'm not doing it at the moment because it seemed to be causing him anxiety and stress, and I'm just not willing to put him through that. And I'm going to be completely honest that I've been thinking about doing this video for months now, since I first started getting questions about me and my use of positive reinforcement, but I've been scared to post it because of how it might be received by some in the positive reinforcement community. It's a really beautiful place, and I've had some really wonderful experiences and made some really nice connections, and I still love and adore those people. But for every 10 wonderful people, there are 1 or 2 very judgmental and kind of holier than thou people. I'm not talking about specific trainers. I'm not talking about the very well-established positive reinforcement trainers out there. All of them I adore and love, and they're not like this. For the newer people who join positive reinforcement, who like me, you're almost so desirous of trying to separate yourself from what you used to be that you project, I guess. But yeah, so I've been scared to post this because I don't like confrontation. I'm in a position now where I want to be able to post authentically about my journey with horses without being afraid of what some people will say. And at this point, posting authentically would mean admitting that I don't use positive reinforcement nearly as much now as I used to, and that's okay. Basically, I'm stepping away from using labels to describe my horsemanship, and instead I'm just letting the results speak for themselves. And that's mostly because labeling can pigeonhole you, and it can result in people being disappointed when you grow and change and no longer fit their idea of what you used to be, and maybe the reason that they followed you in the first place. I know that if you started following me because I do positive reinforcement or did positive reinforcement more than I do now, you might no longer have the desire to follow me, and that is 100% okay. But I want to be authentic about where I'm at and what I'm doing. That leads us really well into a discussion of what my horsemanship looks like now. So currently, my horsemanship looks very much like a two-way mutual relationship. I listen to them, and as a result, they tend to trust me and put effort into the things that I'm asking of them. I use what I would call Lima with a cookie on top, or negative reinforcement with a cookie on top. I don't force, I don't flood, I don't trigger stack, or I try to avoid trigger stacking. I keep that in mind, and I do everything I can to set them up for success in whatever situation we're going into. I also use ideas that I took from positive reinforcement in terms of shaping plans and successive approximation. I aim for a slow and steady progression with no shortcuts, no training gadgets, and I set realistic goals. I recognize that every horse is different, and that what works for one might not work for another, and also that what works for one person might not work for another. I'm very well aware that certain people might be able to take positive reinforcement and make it work with every single horse. That is great. I am more, I don't even know how to describe this, but more like inward focused. So I'm prioritizing self-care and checking in with my energy levels during a ride or a training session, and paying attention to how those emotions impact the horse. I do my best to find balance and do cross training. We do as much relaxed hacking as we do intense training sessions, jumping, dressage, things like that. I'm very big about allowing them periods of rest, especially following periods that were busy. So Merlin had quite a busy kind of September, and after we did our Dressage Riders Online show, I gave him a few lighter weeks where we just did a lot of hacking before gearing up for a busy end of October. I have a species appropriate lifestyle approach to management. Another thing I'm very big on is good quality hoof care. I'm very much a proponent of barefoot as much as possible. I'm not a big fan of metal shoes, especially now that there are such incredible alternatives to shoes out there. I'm not anti-shoe, but I'm anti-not progressing. So there's some really incredible composite shoes, there's hoof boots and things like that don't restrict the growth of the hoof as much as traditional metal shoes do. And I'm also a big proponent of regular body work, acupressure, energy work, so Merlin gets all of those things, and semi-regular physio. And overall, my main focus is just keeping it fun for everybody involved, even when you're working towards competition. All this to say that within that, I still use positive reinforcement on a regular basis. I just don't define myself by that label anymore because it's not reflective of where I'm at in my journey with horses. Now I think a lot about the way that I and my emotions affect the horse. So I do a lot of checking in with myself and really focusing on the ways that, and this is gonna sound woo-woo to some, but it is my experience that staying calm and in tune with your emotions when you're working with a horse, and making sure that you don't reach a certain threshold of emotions and trigger stacking really helps to set your horse up for success and keep them calm and reduce the risk of big explosions or behavioral issues. And that's just my personal experience, and I'm doing what feels right. When I was more into using positive reinforcement, incorporating it as much as I could into everything that I do with horses, I found I got very obsessed with the science of it all. It started to take away the magic of the relationship building with the horse. And it sounds funny in my head to say that because I started positive reinforcement as a way to improve my relationship with my horse. Yeah, I don't even know how to describe it. It just, when I'm with my horses, I don't want to be overthinking every single little thing that I do. And I got to a certain point with positive reinforcement that I was overthinking everything, and it was really taking some of the joy away from working with horses. I'm very self-reflective on this channel, I think, and I talk a lot about how sometimes old Kaitlyn threatens to take over, and I'm working towards being able to catch myself sooner, and it's getting better and better and better with each time that it happens. And yeah, my current main focus is self-work on regulating my emotions, which in general is helping me a lot in my day-to-day life outside of horses. And you know, sometimes it gets past where I can control it, and that's okay. I've heard some people use the analogy of a piggy bank of trust, that every time, you know, you're working with your horse and they have a good experience with you, you're slowly adding into a bank account of trust that they can draw on when you ask them to do something scary. They look at their past experiences and said, oh, you know, whenever she's asked me to do something, it's turned out okay, so this might be fine. And his piggy bank of trust and Eve's too are so filled with good experiences that one, you know, slightly negative session won't set us back. And you know, knowing this and also learning more about equine memory and how it functions has encouraged me to give myself a little bit more grace when I do make a mistake. Shame only sets us back, and at least for me, it makes me live in the past rather than in the moment. And I feel like I've done a lot of work over the last few years to overcome the shortcomings that I had with horses in my past and the way that I encouraged and desensitized to treat them, that it's time to look ahead more to the future, be proud of myself for how far I've come and how I'm continuing to change and evolve. Diving headfirst into positive reinforcement was a necessary step in that journey, and one I'm still very, very happy about, and I still love using it. I used to do a lot of like positive reinforcement process videos, and those are videos that I am so proud of. And I know that those videos continue to get views and people joined my channel, but for people who have joined my channel recently, I want this video to kind of act as a update, just so that newer people have an accurate representation of where I'm at now and the videos that I'll be putting out in the future. And also it just acts as a record of one step in my ever-evolving horsemanship journey. If you have enjoyed this video, definitely give it a thumbs up and comment down below. Subscribe if you want to see more. I would love to hear from you in the comments. My only ask is that you keep it kind and respectful. I totally understand that I've said some things in this video that some people might not like. I don't want the comment section of this video to turn into a debate about positive reinforcement versus negative reinforcement, and if one way of looking at things is better than the other. That's not what I want this to turn into. This YouTube channel is my happy little corner of the internet, and I just don't want that kind of discussion in the comments. I'm not trying to make a statement about the validity or efficacy of positive reinforcement as a method. I'm just talking about my own experiences. I'm totally down for discussions as long as it's respectful, but I just don't want it to devolve, if that makes sense. So if you have watched this video and are no longer interested in following me because I'm not as pure positive reinforcement anymore as I used to be, that's completely fine. The beauty of social media and things like YouTube is that we have the freedom to follow people whose content we enjoy, to unsubscribe from those who are no longer relevant to us, and move on with our lives without having to spare thoughts or comments to people whose content is no longer relevant to us. I'm still very nervous to post this. I know I shouldn't be because, like I said, I don't have a very big audience and I don't think this will actually prompt that big of a reaction, but I'm going to put my brave pants on and edit this and post it because one of the core ideas that backs up my channel is authentically posting about my relationship and journey with horses, and actually doing the thinking and kind of writing notes for this video has prompted a couple of thoughts for other similar-ish videos. So I'm really excited to say that this is kind of going to be a series of sorts, just about horsemanship and emotions and self-care. Sometime in the next, hopefully before the end of the year, there's going to be a part 2 where I talk about how healing yourself can help your horse. And my dear friend Elsie is going to be joining me for that video. So I'm really excited. I think we're going to have a really nice conversation, and I'm excited to put that video out. And then I have plans for a third one in this kind of series. Madame Natalie is going to join me. Despite how busy I am, I have made the decision that I'm going to attempt, keyword attempt, to do Vlogmas, which is a tall order because it basically means, for me, what I've kind of thought is one video every other day from the 1st of December until Christmas Eve. So 12 videos in 24 days. Which, yeah, we'll see how it goes. But if you're interested in seeing that, then stick around, and I hope you're having a wonderful day wherever you are. Don't forget to give your horse or pony a hug or a kiss the next time you see them, and I will see you next time. Bye.